Halfling Shorts, where for the next few weeks we're going to be discussing D&D Armour and their historic counterparts. And today we're going to be starting off with Chainmail. Chainmail, usually shortened to just mail, is a type of armour consisting of hundreds of metal rings hooked into one another and usually riveted together to form a very effective form of armour that, unlike most other metal armours of the period, was also very manoeuvrable. Mail had been with us since at least the 4th century BC, and its invention is usually attributed to the Celts. The armour was then adopted by the Romans, and its use only spread outward from there, proving popular throughout the early medieval and used most famously by the Saxons, Vikings, and Normans. Whilst originally protecting the torso, through the centuries mail became increasingly cheaper to produce, and we started seeing the emergence of rich knights being completely covered head to toe in about the 12th century. And mail was popular for a reason. It was particularly effective at stopping bladed weapons without impeding the maneuverability of the wearer. However, thin, piercing weapons like bodkin arrowheads and estoc swords could pierce through the links in the armour, and heavy weapons like maces didn't need to cut you, they could bludgeon you to death through the mail. As such, padded armour was commonly worn beneath the mail, and later, when elements of plate armour began to be introduced, it was usually added atop the mail rather than replacing it. For example, great helms began to be introduced during the Crusades to counter Arabic and Turkish archers. It wasn't until the end of the 15th century, with the introduction of the plate harness, did you begin to see the decline of mail. However, even in a plate harness, mail was still commonly used to protect the vulnerable joints. Mail was exported throughout Europe and into Asia and Africa, with mail being used from the Knights of Mali to the Japanese samurai. In fact, some police forces today still employ mail in their body armour. Mail was one of the core medieval armours, and whilst D&D tends to be very anachronistic, if you do want your world to feel more medieval, mail is something that should be commonplace amongst your more professional soldiery, with the more elite warriors wearing hybrid armour to really bring about those high medieval feels. So mail gets a big medieval star of approval from me. But make sure you're subscribed for more